Welcome to Your Unapologetic Life, the podcast dedicated to empowering women in midlife to embrace their bodies, reclaim their confidence, and live unapologetically. If you are missing how you felt in your body before perimenopause, this is the podcast for you. It is my pleasure to have my friend Tania with me. Tania has been passionately guiding individuals toward their strongest, most vibrant selves for over 6 years. A former corporate professional, she transitioned into fitness in July of 2018 after finding solace and healing through movement following a personal loss. Fitness became her lifeline, and now it's her mission to help women break free from the diet culture, embrace strength, and build their best bodies with confidence and joy. As a NASM certified personal trainer and precision nutrition coach, Tania's philosophy centers on the power of balanced living. Her career spans industry-leading fitness brands like Orangetheory Fitness, Spanga Fort Lauderdale, Roar, and LFT Lab, where she has mastered the art of blending strength, cardio, and flexibility to unlock transformative results. Tania is also the host of her own podcast. It's called Trend Set Her Podcast, where she dismantles toxic myths around food, fitness, and self-worth with humor, sass, and unfiltered honesty. Whether coaching clients or connecting through her podcast, Tania empowers women to ditch restrictive mindsets and reclaim their joy through soulful movement, nourishing food, and an unapologetic self-expression. That last part there really resonates with me as we are in the Unapologetic podcast. Tania, let's take it back though. I lived in South Florida for 6 years, which is why I'm embracing my love of South Florida with this tropical top that I bought down there many, many years ago. And also that's where you and I met. And I only lived there for 6 years. You're still down there. Who are you? Where are you from? Let's hear a little bit about your background and then how you and I met and why we click.
Yeah, let's do it. So I am originally from the Hartford, Connecticut area. I moved to South Florida probably in 2008. Honestly, running from myself. And as anybody knows, when you're running from yourself, you're going to find yourself over and over again and you cause the problems over and over again wherever you are. But I ended up moving down south to start a new life. And fast forward, I had been in 4 or 5 industries. And honestly, the last industry I was in, I was just tired of the bro culture. And we're going to have a little visitor. She decided to pop in and out when she wants to. So for me, when I was at a pivotal point, probably about 7 years ago, and had was in a career that I hated. I felt like I had no purpose. I didn't feel like I was creating impact. Like I was making money for people, but I wasn't making money for myself, nor was I really fulfilled in what I was doing. And my mom was really sick with cancer, and so she had unfortunately lost that battle. Hey, girly. And at the end of the day, it caused me to really think about how I wanted, like, you face the mortality of a parent, you also face your own mortality, and you recognize that the time on this earth you have is very limited. And why live by somebody else's? Every industry I had been in, I found similar barriers that I hated having to navigate and kind of tippy toe around to be successful as a woman in the corporate America, and or sell a part of your soul that I wasn't willing to give up. So fast forward, I had been wanting to be in fitness and health since my early 20s. So I had always wanted to be a trainer. And when you come from Caribbean parents, they really push traditional ways of making money. So obviously I didn't take that route, but her death caused me to really, fitness and nutrition had really been the thing that had gotten me through that very difficult time, because the same year that I had my mother pass, I left my partner. So my marriage ended. I left my career. I did everything you shouldn't do. They say when you lose a parent, you shouldn't change anything. And I changed it all in a fail of 2 years, which obviously was very challenging, but comes to where I met you, where I ended up jumping into fitness. I started Orangetheory. You were always the brightest light in the room and like the nicest coach. We just we just connected over music and being ourselves and just being open and honest. And I think that was something I was really missing in South Florida. I think a lot of people try to be something they're not, and you are just unapologetically yourself. So it's refreshing when you can just have a space to share with somebody your own vulnerabilities and your own things as a woman, because I think we do need to share like that space for each other. I think that's what's kind of missing in some relationships with women, is not having that vulnerability to really be yourself for whatever reason. And we just clicked. And then fast forward, you moved, you pursued a different career, and we've had pretty much heart check Mondays ever since. Sometimes I'm the worst. It takes me a little bit, few days to get to you, but we've kept our relationship and friendship going via these like Marco Polos. And I'm thankful for you because we both had times where it was really dark and sad. And I think we were just lights in each other's darkness. So, which is what brings us here today.
For the listener, Heart Check Monday, and you're not the worst, by the way. Bless her heart. The girlfriend that started the idea will go months without her checking me back. And I just keep sending because and at one point she's like, Morgan, I really appreciate that you just keep up with this and I don't. And I'm like, it's all right. I know you love me. And I'm just going to keep sending my heart checks every Monday, even though you
I
don't
love it.
respond.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it.
Also, going back to us meeting, I will say for me, going into that fitness industry and being with you and the other coaches was something I really missed when I did go into corporate America, because there's a freedom in fitness and you kind of have to have a fun personality to be in front of people with a mic on. And not everyone loves to work out like you and I do. And so we need to motivate them. We need to get them riled up and excited and make them feel like they're there for a reason and to have a little fun. And I would say, like me, you're one of the coaches that didn't focus on looks or weight. And it was years later, I was walking through a TJ Maxx with my mom, and I'm talking like 6 months ago. Out of nowhere, a student of mine from one of the Orange Theories I worked at in California, she's like, hey, I'm going through my Instagram, and I'm like kind of getting rid of people that I don't stay in touch with or talk to anymore. I just wanted to let you know that you had a lot of impact on me, because you never talked about weight when you were motivating us or like reminding us to get to class and encouraging us. You never, and she's like, I suffered an eating disorder and for years and years and years, and you really never ever talked about weight. You always talked about being strong in your body, but more so your mind. And I was just like, but I feel like you are that kind of coach too. And you speak to that, specifically working with women. We've got such a diet culture. We've got a lot of pressure. And I will say, coming from a small town of Wisconsin myself, where I did never, ever, ever was exposed to a manicure or a pedicure or getting my hair done. I mean, I had long hair. My mom just chopped it off in the basement. Every time it got a little scraggly at the ends, like there was nothing. Then I moved to South Florida, and the pressure is on to look a certain way, do certain things. I got the lady waxing my eyebrows telling me, Morgan, it's time for Botox. And I was like, what? So it's just a different culture down there, and it is everywhere. And now there's social media and all the things. So all that to say, obviously you're helping folks, women in particular, with fitness and nutrition. And I'm sure there's a lot of wounds or traumas or expectations that come up that you're also talking to them about.
So I think when I look at how to break free or how I help women, it really starts with deep seeding program around nourishment. And also there's a couple of things. It's almost threefold. There's a deep seated programming around like what we put into our bodies, how we take up space, right? The smaller, the better is what we've been told since we were very, very little, especially for you and my age, or we're similar in age. We were in the times of heroin chic, and very, very thin was the thing to be. And so when I'm approaching nutrition coaching, a lot of what I'm asking them to do is actually nourish themselves, like with real food, and there is always a level of resistance, because the way that we've been programmed is less is more, and the way that we've been programmed since a very young age. I mean, when did we didn't see our parents doing a diet? There was a new diet every single like cycle. Most of them look the same over time, but at the end of the day, the message is to most young women in very critical years that you should be restrictive all the time, and that if you are restrictive, there's some kind of badge of honor that you are abiding by. And the way that you got the badge of honor, which is what leads to a lot of disordered eating, is your thinness, right? The thinner that you were, the more recognition you would receive, because you must be super disciplined, you must be having like following, eating the best things or not eating at all. And what you'll find over time, especially with like that kind of deep-seated programming, because it's not just about the nourishment, it's about the space you take up as a woman. And I think that it's twofold, right? Like we should be one, this is not what I think, but I'm teaching my clients to do this, is we should be always serving from any cup, empty as fuck, right? Like it should always be like you're always giving, 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 which is a lot of dieting, right? You always less, 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 less. And you end up in these positions where we're told we shouldn't really be taking care of ourselves, which will eventually lead to disordered eating and disordered ways of having relationships, which is why a lot of women have harmful relationships with friends and family. And then it's also physically like what they think is good for their body, right? Because they've been told less is more. So it's, the programming is so deep and layered. And the first thing I do often is just get them to eat. And it sounds so incredibly simple, but it's so incredibly challenging for some women to eat a sandwich, to have a piece of fruit. Like, you know, there's been so much stigma and so much misinformation, intentionally done on purpose, because the diet culture makes billions of dollars off of our insecurities, billions. And they're also the same solution off of our insecurities, right? It's like a big fucked up cycle. But I really focused with them on the concept of nourishment, you know, and that's how it starts really, because most of the time the macros are just the macros. Most people can follow a plate and build a plate, but why are you adverse to nourishing yourself? Why are you feeling like I don't deserve to eat? Or more importantly, why do you think your body should look like somebody else's? You know, I think that that's another piece of like the very complex piece of dieting is like, you know, we live in a country that is diverse ethnically, and all of us aren't going to look the same genetically. So every diet will affect the body differently, and everybody will represent and illustrate differently based on their diet. And I really focus on the body image piece of things too. Like, yeah, I'm going to help you look your best self, how you should look as your best self. Not what the magazine says, because you mentioned this earlier with like South Florida being a deep pressure of how you should look and how you should show up, and like the lips and the Botox and all that kind of stuff. And my message to most of my clients is like, what can we do that can, one, make you feel good in your body, and two, make you feel alive when you're moving around the world being magical, without that external pressure. And if things arise, which they always will, is why do you feel that you're not deserving of taking care of yourself? Why do you feel like food isn't important to you? What do you think you're sacrificing by gaining, like by doing that? And I do think that most women, which is like your ideal women that you're trying to help, really struggle with eating. They really struggle. You know, they really struggle with not like feeling guilty around food, when to me food is fundamental, and it's a huge part of, it's the source that makes us come alive. So when I'm starting to look at dieting and breaking through to that, it really is like a little therapy, you know, a little therapy, a lot of clearing up of misinformation, and a lot of how can I help my clients give themselves grace, because these pressures we didn't put on ourselves, they came from somebody else, right? And if you're going to live an unapologetic life, that means that you have to create your own expectations of yourself without the noise of society and the outside world.
Mhm. When you talk about nourishing, I don't know why that hits, but it hits for me, and I honestly can say I haven't thought of it that way. The thing that I used to bug me because I had disordered eating for
Yeah,
almost a
me too.
decade and a half,
Yeah, me too.
and for me, it was reading the books and going to the therapy, and I'd hear about intuitive eating, and I thought, "I don't know what that means anymore. Because like you were saying, I had food groups that were absolutely off limits.
Yeah.
There were foods that I would let myself completely go balls out on and binge, and then it was like,
Mhm.
"Okay, and then tomorrow I'm gonna not eat anything," and then there was just these massive swings, and when you finally do heal from that and look at it, like you said, from the nourishing, it's it's not a game isn't the right word, but it's like almost
It's not a
gamified.
point system. Absolutely. It's perfectly it's not a like it's not like Weight Watchers, right? Where you would have to like the points like you don't really understand what makes you feel good if you're not paying attention. And I use nourishment more than I use intuitive eating and or
I like it better.
yeah, because it means I'm taking care of myself. And that encompasses a lot. That encompasses the food I take in, that encompasses the information I take in, that encompasses like the energy I'm around, right? It's I don't know where I pivoted that because for women, the thought of eating is like you're doing something wrong innately. Like you can never do it right because there's so much misinformation around the diet world. There's this diet's more perfect than this diet, and everybody's just looking for perfection. But really, you should just be looking into what nourishes you because there is no perfection, right? Like you and I both had disordered eating because we thought we were trying to build a perfect body or a perfect external look, and in that we were hurting ourselves and like making weird eating choices where now I love when I get a call like a FaceTime from you or like our little Marco Polo, like I'm having a cookie. I just don't give a fuck. This is the fourth day I have. And I'm the same way. I'm like, I'm obsessed with Ben and Jerry's churro churray right now. So if I want to scoop every day, I'm gonna have a scoop every day. And it doesn't mean I'm not hitting my protein or it doesn't mean I'm not, I'm just not taking it that seriously because I think that eventually you have to choose your change, right? Like you have to start to think of how do I want to show up in this world as a woman, right? And if I'm constantly dieting, you are subconsciously tapping into the thought that your body is the only thing that is your worth, right? So like you don't realize that you're putting so much emphasis on that your body is your worth, that your body is the thing that other people are going to find valuable, but you don't even find your body valuable because you're not taking care of it, right? So to me it's like how do we break that so that you recognize your worth has nothing to do with what you look as a woman. The best part of you is just being a woman. The best part of you is just you in the magical form you are, whether you have cellulite or whatever or fat jiggly booty. Like we all have things that we think we don't love, but that has nothing to do with what makes you valuable. You came into this world valuable. So if you are thinking of just dieting to focus on the aesthetics, how do we nourish your soul? How do we make you feel like a badass again? Because dieting doesn't make you feel like a badass. I'm sure you've never felt like a badass on a
I
diet.
felt trapped, I felt
Trapped.
empty, I
Yeah.
felt consumed by these thoughts that I wasn't even, like, present in my own life because I was too busy thinking about what's gonna be there and what am I gonna eat and what if I don't what if I eat too much and then it was obnoxious.
100%. 100%. 100%.
Now, with, women, I've talked to a couple women and they maybe come to you initially because 'cause they're like, "I wanna lose a certain amount of weight," or, "I wanna look a certain way," and you probably get into that, and there is an inevitability for some, it could be genetics, could be whatever, could be hormones, that they do pick up some weight in midlife. And when someone comes to you and says, "Oh, this menopause belly is really not okay with me," and they're saying the nasty things to themselves and thinking, "Is this what I'm gonna look like now?" What if it is? Or is that something you're like, "Okay, we'll get there, we're gonna work on this first," or, like, how would you walk through with someone who, because our bodies do change as women, not only daily, our cycle. I mean, every month, every week, my weight goes up and down because of my cycle. And then menopause, perimenopause, like it hits people a certain way. And some women are really struggling with it.
Yeah.
How would you start with someone like that's like, oh, this menopause belly is, I feel so fat and nasty?
I would probably start with I start with the client, every client the same way, which is trying to figure out what you're actually currently doing, right? Because
Mhm.
I think a lot of times I hear this like, I am being healthy. Okay, what does healthy mean to you, right? And like, let me see what those healthy habits, I quote unquote them, because like that to me means you're probably not eating enough and you're depriving yourself of things. Um, so we take a quick inventory of like what your basic, habits look like, and when you start to talk bad about your body, I'm immediately going to stop you. So that doesn't even like I understand you can want change, you can want to change yourself aesthetically without being derogatory towards yourself, right? Like if you want your body to look and feel and thrive and shine, then you got to love you too. You got to love you in all of your phases. And so when it comes to like perimenopausal, menopausal women, I really spend a tremendous amount of time on the basic habits at the beginning, and then if they have hormonal deficiencies, I'm going to tell them to take care of that. I don't think that like if you're someone that has your estrogen deficient and you're no longer getting wet, if you're no longer having your juices flow, okay, and then let's take care of that, right? We have modern medicine for a reason. I do think that like with PCOS, I have a client that I've been with for a while, and she was really struggling, and she was doing all the things fundamentally that you should be doing, but she needed medical assistance.
Mm.
Then let's couple the balanced eating and the healthy habits with whatever we need, whether it's the hormone balance, whether it's the gut recheck, whether it's a little touch of GLP-1s, right? Like, I'm not adverse to those things. Where I think it gets hard is when you already put in your mind, oh, I'm 50 something years old and this is going to be my body. Yeah, your body's not going to be 20-year-old you, right? Like, 20-year-old you is still a baby. I had this conversation with a client the other day. You know, we get this like subconscious or the subliminal messaging around being a woman that our 20s are our peak, right? And that's going to be our years. But we peak at 40, right? So like we have a whole 20 other years of figuring our shit out and getting that, doing our thing. So if our peak is at 40, there's not going to be a serious decline if you're strength training, if you are eating foods that are good for you, if you're nourishing your mind and body the way it should. And yes, we can get you to a body that you're going to feel good and that your perhaps menopausal tummy will start to come down and actually see definition. We've seen it with women in their 60s that still have very fit bodies. And a lot of it is just coupling modern science with healthy habits, real healthy habits, meaning like prioritizing your protein, having whole foods, drinking water, getting good sleep. I mean, most times people aren't doing these four, right? So if you do these four, you're going to see a change. Where the disconnect happens is this expectation that your body is supposed to look like something it's not, right? And that's where like Instagram and social media and like media come in, that if it doesn't look this way, it's not great. It's just, but I'm sure every woman out there that's been in front of a man naked is not going to, they're not looking at what you're looking at.
Exactly. I've
So,
I've noticed that, and part of my program, my coaching program, is embrace the change
yeah,
because you're not 20 anymore. And sometimes people will say, well, and that makes me mad. And I'm like, and like the time or the train called time is not stopping. Like it just
yeah,
isn't. And there are different phases. Like I had 2 knee surgeries. Now I can't do certain things. I don't move the same way. I can't wear the same shoes. Like, or when I got my implants out, it was like, embrace the change. Now I have scars and my
yeah,
areolas aren't in the perfect
yeah,
line with
yeah,
each other
yeah.
anymore. And it was like, the first time I saw him, it kind of freaked me out and I started crying. And then it was like, And this is okay because this is my body now. This
Yeah,
is where I'm at now. And like you
yeah.
said, I thought about the scene in Eat, Pray, Love when
Mhm.
what Elizabeth's character played by Julia Roberts, and
Mhm.
they were at that pizza place in Italy,
Mhm.
and she's like, "I can't. I've picked up so much weight." And she's like, "Have you ever gotten naked in front of a man?" And he was like, "No, I can't do this." Like,
Right.
and
Never,
then
never, never.
and, and I had one lady. She says to or one client say to me, I wish I could see myself through how my husband sees me or how other people see me. And I'm like, I wish you could too, because they're not those critical, nasty, cruel, mean eyes that you are looking at yourself.
100%,
Yeah.
100%. And it's also like, it's a reminder that aging is a privilege that not
Yeah.
everybody gets to experience. And what you do with that privilege is entirely up to you. You can spend your whole life hating the body that shelves and takes you around and allows you to be magical and unapologetic, or you can celebrate every stage of having the opportunity to see what it feels like to be 40, to be 50, to be 60. And those are the things that I think a lot of times when I'm working with clients, yes, I'm going to put things in perspective. Yes, I will get you to feel and look good. But where the disconnect happens is we've had such bad internal dialogue about our bodies and what they should look like. That is the hardest part. And I also have to say that, like, we live in a very fat phobic country, right? So, because of that deep fat phobia, you see people choosing to not be healthy, like truly healthy, because of a pant size, of like a pant size going up, or I don't understand I look in the mirror and I look better, but the scale's gone up. Like, why are you caring about that? You look better, like you're healthier. So it's I really try to help women remember that their uniqueness is something to celebrate, and that there are ways for you to really kind of ditch the mindset, because the mindset's not just about the food. The mindset is for us women to play small. And if you're not a vibrant, well nourished woman, you can't step into your wild womanhood or be this unapologetic self, because you have nothing to give. You have no juice to like kind of get it flowing.
And I think you, like you said before, attract maybe relationships that don't have good boundaries or folks that aren't going to treat you the way that because you're not even treating yourself the way that you should be. And so now like attracts like, and you're not, but when you're so confident in yourself and you feel really good and nourished and sexy then you're inviting those sorts of vibes into your life.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
I want to go back to something that you said in your or that is in your bio, and something that's important to me, because for me, I was extremely during that period of disordered eating. I was super rigid about my workouts as well. It was like if I didn't work out for an hour and a half, where I did the cardio, the strength training, and the cool down with the stretches and the ab routine, I didn't consider it a workout. Like I was just so rigid about it. And then I discovered exotic dance and fitness, where it was like there was a workout. It was like we would just move. We would do a warm up, we'd stretch, we would dance. There was no like PRs, and there was no focus on certain things, and I found that joy in movement, and then ended up teaching and watching other women who their body didn't necessarily change in terms of weight or shape, and yet I watched them transform in their attitude and in their confidence, and because they started to move in a way that felt good to them. And you mentioned something about fitness as being a lifeline, and that um, it was a journey for you through movement that helped you heal. And how did that help you heal? Talk more about how movement was a lifeline, what that movement even means to you, and how you bring that into your work with clients.
So for me, movement has been a lifeline. I can speak directly to like my mom's passing, as well as like the transitional period. It had always been in the past something I did to be as small as I physically could. So I'm speaking as a person that has done all these things to take less space, right? Because you're told to be palatable and digestible. And I'm not a digestible person. I'm spicy, so if you can't digest me, that's on you. you know. But when I was young, when I was younger, I really, my relationship with exercise was like you mentioned, like it was very disordered. It was very addictive to like extreme measures of movement. And I had danced and I had lifted and I had ran. I did a lot of running, especially in the years that I had my most disordered eating. I can say now I run just for fun, which is a great feeling, right? But when I was going through um, my mom's like really illness kind of like came in 2008 and then it circled back in like 2014 or 15, and it was the only thing that gave me an outlet because I was out of control, right? Like I had no, I was, I was also in my worst mental position because she was my best friend and she was someone, I think that this life can be very hard, but if you have one parent that is amazing, then you're going to be all right, kind of situation. And she was that to us. So it felt weird to step into the adult role of like, oh, I now have to kind of like comfort my own mom as she's facing her own mortality. Um, and I remember going to Orangetheory, which is why I started at that brand. And I had these coaches and they pushed me and they motivated me. And it gave me a good 50 minutes to just like unplug. But it was the first time it wasn't about being skinny, it wasn't about being thin, it was about being mentally resilient because what I was about to face at the time, I didn't realize would almost break me, in the sense of, and I think that a lot of that period was meant to undo me, so that I could really step into who I am now. But it was very challenging to try to be with my partner at the time and have a job, and then I hated my industry and a very toxic work environment. And she was passing, and it was the only thing that was for me. It was the only thing that I had that I could call my own. And she ended up, dying. And I went right back to the gym to kind of move. But over time, over like the lessons before she passed, I think most of them was like, she would just give me little gems, like, oh, I wish I could be moving still. Oh, I wish I could be strong still. I wish I could get out of bed still. I wish, like, I remember I would come back from work and I would FaceTime her because she was living in Puerto Rico at the time. And I'd be complaining about my boss. And she's like, oh, I would love to overcome a challenge. And like these things that you are taking as like adversial and like very hard, um, are opportunities for you to grow, are signs that maybe you need to pivot. And I didn't realize that at the time, but she was kind of in her last moments of life giving me a roadmap to my future. And it was through exercise that I kind of like was able to hold on to my mental health because I blew up my life, Morgan. Like I didn't, I didn't like kind of just babily do like I was just like obviously groove took over, but exercise was the one constant. And then, I think when she passed, a lot of that, I had already healed a lot of that disordered eating before going into coaching. And seeing her get so incredibly thin as someone that had tried to diet their whole life um, was like an aha moment. Like, why am I wasting this time? Right? Like, I mean, she was as balanced as she could be, and not that she had disordered eating by any chance. But we did like she did the what's it called, the South Beach diet, and every other thing that came out. We tried it. We tried them all. And when I looked at the end of her life and she could barely hold on to 135 pounds and she looked terrible, obviously, because she's going to pass, it made me realize that the smallest wasn't the best, right? And the fragilest wasn't what I wanted to be, because I would rather have had my mom as her vibrant and strong and like, she was a 150 pound self and she was a beautiful woman. So like, I'd rather have that. And that's when I was like, oh, I'd rather have that for me too, because now I don't have to try to play small and be small. So those moments are really what kind of moved my coaching into a position of like, yeah, that's cool that you want to be 135 pounds, but does it really matter? Does it really matter if you're not living well, if you have a bad relationship with food, if you're not sleeping at night? Because we've both experienced that, right? We've had the terrible of having super restrictive eating. Like, does it matter if I'm diminishing my quality of life? For who? For what? Right? You're doing it for a reason you have no idea. Um, and you're like, well, for people to like me. Well, if they don't fucking like you for who you are, they're not your friends. If they think your body has to be a certain way for you to be around them, they're not your friends. Likely they're going to betray you anyway. Um, and now when I go into coaching, I am the coach that's like, well, I'm like, how many days I had this conversation today? How many, times a week should I lift? And I'm like, well, at minimum 2, but do I think you need to do 5? No, because are you going to be able to maintain that when we stop working together? And if the answer is not hell fucking yeah, then let's see what you can maintain. And I want you to do things you enjoy. So if someone's like, well, what's going to give me my best body? The best body is going to be things you enjoy doing, right? Like you've recently gone on a yoga journey. You like doing that. You're being consistent with that practice and your body's responding, right? So like, yeah, I always think you should at least do some strength training for aging purposes. But at the end of the day, if you're not finding joy in it, then is it going to give you that mental release that you really want? And is your body going to show up like you want it to? And I can say my thinnest self was my most insecure self. She was ravaged with insecurities and incapable of like being loved and allowing love in. And also overgiving in every single relationship that I had. So when I think about movement in my coaching, I really do. My biggest pose to them is like, what is this exercise going to give you? Yes, I have prescriptive, like absolutely 2 times a week strength training. Okay, let's put that aside. What movement is going to make you feel joyful? That is going to also give you that same mindful balance. And for everybody, it's different. So when I'm coaching people, it is the thought of like, I have a client right now that is struggling with what's happening in the world, right? Because it is a trying time. Get outside and walk, right? That's a great mental health outlet. And that's something you can find joyful. You're still moving, you're not running. It's a way for you to combat stress naturally. So you get sunlight and you're like, right, you smile immediately. So a lot of my coaching is finding that like, what's your pain point? But the pain point isn't to make it more painful. It's like, how do I show you how to bring joy into your own life? Whether that's through eating well and eating foods you like, moving in ways that you want to move, recovering in ways you want to recover. And I'm just a guide. So yeah, I have principles that I have you do, but I think about old T, the one that was really, really struggling with her mom's passing and where she was going to go in life. I needed to move. If I didn't physically let all that grief out, and I mean, grief never goes anywhere. It is love trapped inside of you. I don't think I would have, unfortunately, made it here today because it is like hard to navigate the loss of a parent that is your only source of support. So I incorporate a lot of that and trying to bring joy into other women's lives through kind of guiding them on like what is going to make you happy with your body, what is going to make you joyful when you're done doing it. And if it is a pole class, go. If it is a yoga class, go. And I'm going to hold you accountable to that, right? Like whatever that is. As long as you do your 2 days a week of strength training.
I love that.
20 minutes.
You and I, we both very much strongly agree in prioritizing protein.
Yes.
And strength training. 2 times a week, minimum strength training.
You have to.
And I will say the movement part that it goes back to something you said much earlier about grace, like giving yourself grace, because I used to be the one who went to CrossFit classes and I really like to work out hard and it was like 6 days a week. And now I'm in this phase where it's like, I'm going to walk for 20 minutes and do a 15-minute yoga routine. And that is all I'm going to do today.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know if it's forever. I don't know how long it's going to last. And what was interesting too, I posted an Instagram story today that I learned that you can hook up to your Facebook as well. So it goes on both platforms. So anyway, someone I've known for a very long time said something. She's like, Morgan, your dedication to your fitness is really inspiring. And I said, thank you. And being consistent keeps me consistent. I said, I move my body every single day, even if it's only 10 minutes. Like the more you build the muscle called consistency,
Yeah.
the more, and then with that consistency, you can change. It doesn't mean that my workouts are an hour and 15 minutes every day, which I would love. I love to do some cardio and then hit the weight room
Yeah.
and feel really good about it for 25 minutes and then do yoga. Some days it's 10 minutes on the treadmill. I'm walking
Yeah.
at 3.8 miles an hour because I don't have it in me today because I'm PMSing and I'm really tired or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's just like the consistency and giving yourself the grace to change that movement as you
100%.
feel it, but staying moving.
But
Moving.
yes, absolutely. I think also too, like you also you had years of foundational over exercising, so like you
Yeah.
probably have a ton of opportunity there to just kind of like chill, you know. And I do think that I'm in the same phase. Like if I can get 3 solid days of lifting in a week, great. If not, I'm making sure that I do 2 major lifts in that week, and I'm walking every day, and I'm happy there. I feel like, and I feel good, and I feel like it's maintainable, and I feel like I found joy in my routine. Um, but I've also removed myself from Fort Lauderdale, right, where it was a more toxic fitness environment, and there was more expectations on how you should look and how you should show up, and I'm not good at the cookie cutter shit. If you didn't realize that, but I'm not. So I think, it comes with finding something that makes your soul happy and just continually doing it. With that is exactly it. The grace that you were talking about, giving yourself that grace.
It reminds me, you just said that, and I didn't want to forget saying it. My mom played a song. My mom used to be a DJ on a public radio station. Years and years she did this, and she's very music savvy. And she used to play this song, and one of the lyrics was, your body is just a car driving your soul around. And it always stuck
Love
with me
that.
because it's like, yeah, you got to take care of it, maintain it, and sometimes you switch it
Yeah.
out for other things like I did. I got the implants, I got them out, and
Yeah.
sometimes you make enhancements and then you change it or whatever you decide to do, and maybe that's what feels right in that moment. And
Mhm.
truly, it really is just a car driving your soul around. The
Yeah.
important thing is your soul. Are you taking care of that? Going back to, are you
Absolutely.
nourishing that? Now, Tania, you're a phenomenal woman, and I would like the listeners to know how to find you, like, and subscribe. So please share where you
Yes.
like people to find you and follow you.
So you can find me on Instagram at tania.i.rivera. And then there's my podcast. I'll try and set her. I'm also on Blue Sky. Wellness Rebellion is my little name. Follow me there. Please feel free to reach out. I love answering questions. Helping women really ditch dieting and like build their unapologetic selves is like kind of my stuff. So feel free to follow. I was going to be on TikTok, but I don't know where that's going. So we'll just stick with the usual stuff.
Great. Well, I'll put that in the show notes, so I'll get that from you so that I know exactly where to let people know how to find you. So thank you again for being here. You are a phenomenal woman and a really awesome friend. So I'm really glad we met.
Awesome. Love you much. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Your Unapologetic Life. I hope you found inspiration and valuable insights to help you embrace your body and navigate the journey of midlife with confidence. If you enjoyed today's episode, I invite you to share it with at least one woman in your life that you care about. Let's empower each other and create a community of support and strength. And don't forget to head over to my website, morganbarkis.com, to access your free body confidence scorecard. It's a free assessment, a special gift I designed to help you assess how you truly feel about your body. By joining my email list, You'll have access to the free assessment. You'll also get regular tips and resources to continue your journey towards self-love and empowerment. Thank you for being here, and remember, you are not alone on this journey. Together we embrace the change and celebrate the vibrant women we are becoming. Until next time, stay fit, stay fabulous, and stay unapologetic.